We are talking with Brett Bouchy, the co-owner of the LA Kiss. Is that the correct title?
Yeah, I'm the managing partner and co-owner.
Okay, so let's just get into this. You know, before we had the LA Kiss, we had the LA Predators. They vacated in 2009. How did you decide, okay, we need to get a team back into LA? And then how did you decide, hey, we're going to do it with Kiss?
You know what? It's kind of a funny story. Well, first of all, it was the Los Angeles Avengers, and they played in the Staples Center.
What did I say?
The LA Predators, which is the team that I used to own for 16 years. And
sorry, the Orlando Predators and the Los Angeles.
Yeah, I understand, and sometimes it's confusing to me. I call them the LA Predators all the time, but the Orlando Predators is something that I got involved with in 1997, and I had a great run there. And I decided that we were awarded the neutral site Arena Bowl, which was our Super Bowl game in arena football, and that was happening last year. The game was going to be televised on CBS. And I said, you know what, we need to turn this into a bigger event. We need to turn this into a mini Super Bowl weekend. And I said, let's do a concert before the game. The game happened to be on Saturday afternoon. And I said, what is a better way to showcase the Arena Football League than let's bring in one of my favorite bands growing up, Kiss. And Kiss is about music, but it's also about theater and theatrics. And I just thought that that is the epitome of what the Arena Football League is about, because we try to separate ourselves as not just a sporting event, but an entertainment event. And Kiss kind of crosses over outside of music into theater. And I thought it was the perfect mix. And I put in a call. I had a mutual friend that knew Doc McGee. Doc McGee and I were on the phone. We hit it off very, very well, and we were playing golf. So we put this deal together. Kiss is coming to play the Arena Bowl, and we're playing golf in Nashville. And he said, you know what, maybe I should do a team in Nashville. And I said, you know what, I was halfway kidding. I said, you know, think bigger than that. Do a team in the second largest media market in Los Angeles and call it the LA Kiss. And Doc, you know, kind of walked over to the side onto the cart path, and I think he called Gene and Paul, and he was enamored with the idea and was so excited about it. But then I basically, you know, the reality hit him is, hey, this is a new venture. I know nothing about sports. And he approached me about it. He goes, hey, would you be interested in selling your team in Orlando and coming to LA and help us operate that? I think that's the only way we could really feel comfortable doing it. And then, you know, one thing led to another. I had a conversation with my wife, and here I am living in L.A. Approximately 14 months after that conversation on the golf course.
Now, when you get a team like the L.A. Kiss, there's obviously going to be a built-in fan base with the Kiss fan base, but the team has to go beyond that. It has to go to the sports fan, to that guy who doesn't know Kiss. Does it limit the market by just calling it the L.A. Kiss, or does it sort of open it and then you have to do that extra work to get those other guys in the door?
Well, I think what it's done is it's never been done before, where an iconic brand that's been associated with a band can cross over and you can name a sports team after it. And a lot of people have asked me a question like, is there any other bands that can do this? There really isn't. Kiss is unique. It is such a different brand, and they, I believe, made a name for themselves. It's great music, but they did something that was different, and a lot of critics ostracized them because they did things differently. So I think there is only one music brand that can even do that, and I think it's unique. It's put a spotlight on us. But the reality is the majority of our fans are not Kiss fans. A lot of people think they're all Kiss fans. We certainly have a ton of Kiss fans that are season ticket holders in Los Angeles, but we have 8,000 season ticket holders, and a majority of them are people that are just enamored with the product. They sampled the product, they fell in love with it, and we really built ourselves as not just a sporting event. We are a fusion of sport, music, and entertainment. We've got dancers that are dancing 80 feet in the air. We've got rock bands. We had Steel Panther play our opening game. We had Vintage Trouble. You know, we are 2.5 hours of fun, and we don't confuse people and say we're all sport, because we're not. The harsh reality in professional sports is that games last between 2.5 hours to 3 hours. But baseball, for example, has 9 minutes of action in a 3-hour game.
And that football has 11.
Yeah,
the NFL.
I understand it. What we have to do is you have to entertain for
Agreed.
for the rest of that. We have BMX riders, dancers. I mean, we have something going on for the entire 2 hours and 30 minutes that our games are going on, and we don't shy away from that. We are very, very proud of that.
Yeah, and I want to get back to that because one of your wide receivers had a problem with that. There's too much stuff going on. But before that, is the Arena League actively seeking the rock stars? They had Bon Jovi for a while, or John Bon Jovi with the Philadelphia Soul. Now you've got Vince Neil. Is that something they're trying to bring in, or is it just that's the way it happened?
It just happened, and I don't. It is just it's crazy, kind of how it happened. And would Vince have been interested? Did it plant a seed in Vince Neil? I don't know. You'd have to ask him that. But certainly, I don't think Gene and Paul came around and said, "Hey, let's start a football team."
Right.
They are very, very good businessmen, and they said, "Hey, this is a great opportunity and a brand extension for KISS." And one of the conversations I had with Doc, and we were sitting there, and it was after we announced the team. It was August 17th. We're having breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton, and it's Gene, Paul, Doc, and myself. And Doc comes down. He's so proud. He goes, "Guys, we've been on the front page of the USA Today. We've been on the front page of the entertainment section. We've been on the front page of the money section. We've been on the front page of the life section. But for the first time ever, we're on the front page of the sports section." And I think that is cool and that is different. And they are good businessmen. They're not going to apologize for that. And I think this has been good for the band. And I think this has opened up a lot of doors for them of people that really didn't know KISS. And I know it's crazy because we're KISS fans. And so many people are KISS fanatics. But a lot of people get exposed to them for the first time, like that show that they just did, Fashion Rocks.
Right.
All right. Now, how many KISS fans were watching that? There probably was, but how many people who were not KISS fans saw them for the first time? Same thing with American Idol. I think that's cool that they're always trying to break into new barriers. I don't think they should be criticized for it, even though they are by some of the hardcore fans.
No, I did a show about a year ago when we talked about the LA KISS, and I said, listen, they're the only team that can do that. You're not going to have the LA Aerosmith or the LA Eagles. So I applaud them for doing that. And, but let's talk about what happened on the field this year. Or, in fact, before I get to that, Gene Simmons has famously said in the 70s and 80s, he doesn't watch sports, he's not interested in sports, it's a big waste of time. When you come to him with this proposal, do you have to convince him of the quality of the sport, or just say, listen, it's a great business deal, and he goes for it? Did he try to learn about the sport?
He definitely has turned, there's actually a scene in our, on our reality show that's on AMC Loud, and where we're trying to educate him more, because there was one time where he did an interview on ESPN, and quite frankly, it was embarrassing to me. He did not know who the players were. They asked him a question of who his favorite NFL player was. He couldn't really name. He mentioned Tim Tebow. It was very awkward. And so we said, you know what, you need to learn more about this. What has been interesting to me is Paul Stanley has really, I think, risen to the top on this. And you can see this, on our show, is that Paul didn't want to do a reality show. But what we tried to do, and there was 2 months where we had every network that was approaching us. And when we started the team, I had no idea there would even be discussion of a reality show. But we said, we want this to be the first quote-unquote real reality show. We want it to be authentic. We want it to be raw. And we don't need to create drama. Because when you run a sports team, there is all kinds of drama, especially when you're losing, which we did a lot of that in 2014. And so that was one of the things that he got excited about. He said, hey, if it's going to be real and it's going to be real discussions, I think that would be interesting for people to look at, and I wouldn't mind participating in that. So a lot of people are surprised how involved he is, but I mean, he is our creative director. He designed our uniforms. He designed our helmets. He's involved in the marketing aspect. He's involved in the game day entertainment, all the crazy stuff we would be able to pull off. That was Paul Stanley, and he has been an incredible help, because I know arena football and I know professional sports very, very well, but these guys have done entertainment like no one else. and I mean it, not just music, entertainment, and to have those guys basically running that side of the business has been incredible. And I think, Paul deserves a lion's share of the credit, even over Gene on that.
And I want to ask you about Paul designing the outfits and stuff. Team logos and all that stuff is very important. I mean, that's how you sell a team, and that's why the Yankees are iconic and the Boston Red Sox. And when he comes to you and say, "I'm going to design this," do you sort of roll your eyes and go, "Oh God, no, we need to call in a big media, design marketing thing," or do you go, "Oh, great"? How did you react when he first came to you and said, "I'm going to do this"?
I actually loved it because one of the issues is that, I did not know Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley for a long period of time before we went into this business venture. And one of the concerns I have is how engaged they are. They have all these different products out there, so many different licenses. And when I saw Paul being that engaged, I was excited about it. Okay. I am not, I'm the antithesis of a creative guy. Am I good at marketing? Am I good at this? I'm good at a lot of things. What I'm not good is at creating things.
Okay.
And so to have somebody that basically takes over what you believe your weakness is, I was ecstatic with it. I think Paul did a great job, and everything we did was so out of the box. I mean, the helmets, I think we've created the most expensive helmet ever made.
Yeah.
I think it's the most unique helmet ever made. We definitely have the most unique field. And a lot of people are saying, I turned on the TV and I thought it was snowing indoors because our field is silver. Right. And that was 100% Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons and Doc pushing me because that was outside of my comfort zone. I'm like, you know what, it's got to be green. It's got to be like everybody else. But they're like, why? We created a band that was unlike anything else in music, and that's what separated us from everybody else. And that put the spotlight on us, and then people could see our product, and that's why we sold. Why not kissify the Arena Football League?
Yeah, when you get that gray field, does the Arena League not have a set of rules that say you have to have X amount of the goalposts have to be this high, and don't they also say, hey, the field has to be green?
Well, we always, a lot of people call the NFL the no fun league.
Yes.
If NFL's the no fun league, we're the all fun league, the AFL, because they don't restrict us and things like that. And there's nothing in it in our bylaws. And I mean, when you have girls that are dressed the way that they're dressed, dancing in cages 80 feet in the air, did we turn some heads? Have we pissed off some other owners? Yes, it's happened. But we're not going to apologize for who we are. We are operating within the rules of the Arena Football League. We are different. We are opening doors for the Arena Football League.
Absolutely.
We have people watching the Arena Football League that have never even seen our product. And we have a great product. And that's why I did this. Why I moved my family across the country, why I sold my interest in Orlando, was because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to expose people to the great game of arena football that have never seen it before. Because I was a former investment banker. I went to a game, and I remember thinking before I went to a game, my buddy said, you got to go watch a game. And I go, where do they play? And I go, they play where the Suns do. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. So it's in, the arena. And I'm like, it's a joke. All right. I remember thinking that's a complete joke. And it's you're bastardizing a game that I love, outdoor football. And so I said no the first 3 times. He finally got me to go. I, by total chance, sat next to the commissioner of the game, commissioner of the league. So it was kind of destiny for me, but I fell in love with it. I took my 2 boys at the time. They loved it. And I just fell in love with the game. And I said, they have no TV contract. Nobody knows about it. This is 1996. It only been around for 8 years. And I go, this is the best sports entertainment product I had ever seen. I had never seen my kids so engaged. They were young at the time. I'd take them to an NBA game, an NHL game, an NFL game, and they were completely bored.
Right.
They loved the game. So I know as people that are exposed to it, they're going to fall in love with the game. And I promise you, we brought more fans in 2014 to the Arena Football League than any other thing the league has done over the last 27 years. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and I do give you credit for that because it's been, as you said, 27 years?
28 years we're going in.
28 years. And there's just been no coverage. I mean, I know when the NFL had a strike, 10 years ago, whatever, they put a couple of games on. I, being in Canada, we just don't get any coverage. There is just zero. It doesn't exist up here, which is a shame.
Well, obviously we don't have teams in Canada, but I will tell you we have a national, network contract with ESPN as well as CBS Sports Network. So we have more games on TV than ever before this year.
But we don't get those networks up here, which is unfortunate.
Yes, and you guys, I mean,
you got to work on that.
Living without ESPN that's a problem.
But we got TSN, right, which is owned by ESPN.
Yes, the funniest thing is we get CFL games, all right, are rebroadcast a lot of times on ESPN, and I enjoy that product too.
So, okay, so you got the team, you got the ownership, you've got the sizzle, you've got all the girls and stuff, but then you have the reality of playing the game, and it didn't work out. So what happened? Where did it go wrong? How do we make it better? And because, people got excited. We saw the KISS name. We saw Gene and Paul. We saw, Nina Strauss doing the national anthem. But you want wins. So how do we fix it?
Well, first of all, the response from our season ticket holders the first year, usually when you're as bad as we were, and we were bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We were 3-15. It was a struggle. It was a train wreck on the field. We lost 3 games at home by more than 40 points, which has never happened to me in 16 years. Yeah. And you have to remember, in 16 years, I had winning seasons, 14 of those 16. I went to 5 championship games. I won 2 championships. My head coach for 11 years was Jay Gruden, who is now the head coach of the Washington Redskins.
Which is my team.
Yeah. Well, I can just tell you, we've had tremendous success. So, I don't think any of us handled it great. I didn't handle it, as you can see on the show. I mean, I am a very, very difficult guy to work for. I am all about production. We brought in a new head coach and everything like that. What we've done is we're going to make some changes. And we are going to bring in some new coaches. We are going to bring in and do some different things. We are also going to bring in a lot of new players because we've got a little bit of a grace because we did such a good job on the entertainment side. Most of our season ticket holders are coming back because they had such a good time and because Paul and Gene did such a great job on the entertainment side. But we've got to get better. We cannot lose, and we will not lose next year. I mean, I'll never, ever go through another season like this. And the fact that it's documented on TV is horrible for me to watch. Every Tuesday, a lot of people are like, hey, there's a new episode on. I'm like, I know what happens. I know it's bad, and I know it's an absolute train wreck. But I hope people can appreciate to let people in. Those are real meetings. A lot of people go, it's scripted. It's not. After a tough loss, I wouldn't even talk to my coach because I was so upset. And we would meet on Monday morning. We'd have the cameras there. And you get so used to having the cameras around that you literally forget that they're there. And I am who I am. And we'd have these discussions. But for people to see and see the train wreck inside, I think is incredibly compelling TV. We just had a ratings record for our series. We had the highest watched episode in episode 6. So not only people are watching it, but it's growing because they're getting engaged. And why they're getting engaged, is it compelling because we're losing? I don't know, but we are all emotional. It is incredibly raw, and it is real. And this has never been shot before. Hard Knocks, all right, it is so watered down. They show you what
they want you to see.
Yes, and this, I don't know what's going on. AMC doesn't, I don't see advanced episodes. We don't control the editing. What we said is we're going to let you document everything, the good, bad, and the ugly. No other show has done that, and that's why I think it's so successful.
Fourth and Loud, is it a sort of self-contained 1 year, that's it? Or as the team continues, do you want this to be a running series where they're going to document season 2 and season 3 and season 4? Or is it like, all right, folks, let us concentrate on football?
Originally, I think the plan was just to do, one season and to see them expose people to the inaugural season and the launch of a team. Will there be season 2? I don't know. I mean, is the answer to that.
Would you like there to be?
I know they've talked about it, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, it is hard to go through, and to be as raw as the organization has been. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Right now, I'm living through it, and it's like it's bad enough going through a season where you lose 80% of your games. I'm going through it twice. It's like having a second season right after the other, and it's really, really hard for me right now. I'm really down. Like, I did not want to watch Tuesday night's episode, but I did. But part of the reason it's hard is because it's so raw, and I have to relive it. But getting to see yourself and seeing how you manage people and some of the mistakes that you made. I've clearly made some mistakes, and you don't it's not often that you get a chance to watch yourself. And it's like, being in a meeting and watching yourself and how you operate. And can you get better as a human being? Can you get better as a manager? Can you get better as an owner, as a leader of the organization? And the answer is absolutely. And I think that is one of the cool things about watching the show. There's obvious negative things of having to relive it, but I believe next year I will be a better owner, person, and manager from a business standpoint.
What are some of the mistakes? For example, when you're trying to bring in a new quarterback, or when you're trying to make some player personnel decisions, should you have pulled back, or was that your right and that your duty, in fact, to say, hey, I got to fix this. Buck stops here.
No, I don't regret it at all.
Okay.
I mean, we needed to make changes. I made some changes. I thought the personnel that we initially brought in was disappointing.
Right.
And I stated that from the very beginning. If you watch the show, I was the first person to recognize that, even before the coaches and our personnel director. I do not regret that at all. What I regret is that I could have been more positive.
Right.
I got negative too early with the guys and with the coaches, and I think I could have said the same things, but did it in a more positive fashion, because I saw what happened, and I just put more pressure on them. That's not really what I meant to do. We obviously had a spotlight on us that was very, very bright, but I definitely could be more positive as an owner and a manager with my coaching staff. That's the thing I regret.
Okay, so now let's go back to some of the things that we've seen in the show and that happened. I believe the wide receiver is Donovan.
Donovan Morgan, yes.
Donovan Morgan. And he sees as Gene and Paul like to call it, the sizzle. They see all the girls and stuff. And he says, God damn, let us play football. And then you had to sort of say, hey, dude, that's insubordination. Let's put on a happy face and be one team. What do you do in a situation like that? And is it disappointing that he had that reaction?
It was disappointing, but if we would have done a better job, meaning that because we were doing things for the first time, no one has ever tried to bring players down from the ceiling.
Right.
All right. So we made some mistakes. And so if we didn't make those mistakes, would Donovan have felt that way at the beginning of the year? Probably not. And I will tell you that Donovan, you have to know Donovan. Donovan is a unique personality, and he's a leader. And it took a lot of courage for him to stand up and say what other players were thinking. But at the end of the day, this is a business. So we are going to continue to do it. We have plans next year to elevate the entertainment level and to do some new things that no one has ever seen before. And we're not going to apologize to anybody about that, the coaches or the players. With that being said, we have a full off season. We will do a much, much better job of providing things. I mean, in your first year, you just make some mistakes. You have staff that have never done it before in the Arena Football League. I brought some people with me from Orlando, some people who were new, and we made some mistakes, but those mistakes fell on me, and they won't happen next year. So I think our players are going to be ecstatic. And Donovan, this is the thing about the show. Donovan, I didn't realize this, but he, as a leader of men in the locker room, he is the best. And I love him, and I desperately want him to come back and play for us in the future. But I didn't really see that, because that's one of the great things about the show is I get to see inside the locker room. I don't go in the locker room. I maybe went to 3 or 4 practices during the year. So getting to see the inner workings of what happens in the locker room and seeing the character and the integrity of the men, even when we're losing and things are going bad, that was pretty impressive. And Donovan really shined above everybody else. So Donovan, I think, was a great player for us, and I hope he's a great player for the LA Kiss for a long time to come.
Yeah, as I watch Fourth and Loud, I get that impression. I looked at him, and even though he complained that first day, I said, what balls to actually do that? I mean, he probably was right. They need to warm up, and then as you watch the footage in the dressing rooms, he's the only one that's got spirit. Everybody else has their head down. You go, well, you're not going to win with your head between your legs. You got to have a bit of spirit. So he really shines.
Yeah, I thought he did. That's what I love about watching the show is that you start seeing the value of guys. I saw his value on the field, but I never really appreciated his value off the field. With seeing the show, his value was immense off the field.
The other guy that's focused on is Kenny Spencer, the kicker.
Yeah.
And there's a narrative that runs through the show where he ends up cheating on his, I guess, girlfriend or wife, and I think there's a kid involved. Is that necessary to show, or is that sort of too getting into the personal details, or is that just creating drama?
I don't think it's creating drama, right? Kenny, I remember, I think Kenny had some comments that, hey, he wished that wouldn't have been shown, those types of the things. The dancer said, I look like a homewrecker. And I was like, listen, guys.
Don't do it if you're worried about looking like that.
Yes. I'm married and have 5 kids, all right? I love my wife dearly. And you know what? The best way to not look bad is don't do anything bad.
Yes.
All right. Be honorable to your girlfriend or your wife. Don't cheat on her. Take the finger and point it at yourself. So I have no compassion for if they're upset because they were exposed. They should be exposed. Don't live in the darkness. Live in the light. And if you don't like it, go play for another team.
Yeah. I fully agree. I'm married with 2 kids, and I'm always telling them, be responsible. If you cheat on an exam at school or whatever, just admit it. Or don't do it. But don't be embarrassed by it. Don't do it. So going forward with Gene and Paul, now that the season was unsuccessful, do they come and say, listen, you have now tarnished the brand? Or do they say, all right, well, we know how to fix it? What's their take now after the end of this first season?
Well, I will tell you that, evaluating the season, you do it a couple of ways. Number one is the business side of it. The business side, everything went well. Our corporate sponsors are all coming back. They're ecstatic and they're happy with us. The spotlight we put on them surpassed their highest expectations. Same thing from a season ticket holder standpoint. People vote with their wallets, and you would think that after the season that we had, you'd see a big decline. I can guarantee you our season tickets are going up next year based on where we are right now with renewals. So that is really positive. From a football standpoint, I was embarrassed. Gene and Paul was embarrassed. Doc McGee was embarrassed. There is immense pressure to perform on the field. All right.
And to perform for the Kiss brand.
Is unacceptable. Like we talked about it last year, is that, we've got some grace this first year, but we're all embarrassed. Every coach should be embarrassed. Every player should be embarrassed. Every person in the organization should be embarrassed. I am embarrassed so much. We cannot lose. LA will not support a losing team. We have to win. We have to win now. And there's incredible pressure. Free agency opens for us on Tuesday, and that's all we're spending time on is we have to increase the caliber of the players that we put on the field. We have to increase the caliber of everything in the organization. Gene and Paul are helping recruit players. They're calling guys on their cell phone, bring them to their house, those types of things. So that's what we would, that's what we're doing. Just losing is unacceptable, and no one takes it harder than myself and Gene and Paul.
Yeah, so during the show, you had a lot of spectacle in the first episodes with, like you said, people coming down from the rafters. But I got, and correct me if I'm wrong, the impression that you needed to dial a little bit back. You had to bring it back. And it seemed to me that it was because of financial considerations. Because they kept talking, well, it's $500,000 or whatever it was per game. Is that still a consideration? I mean, did it just become too expensive and the revenue just didn't match what was coming in? Or what was going out wasn't matching what was coming in?
No, it was just the first game. We did so many things that you can't project what it's going to cost to build a catwalk from scratch to basically bring guys out to the center of the arena and lower them down on a platform. Everything had to be built from scratch. So we didn't even know what it would cost until 3 weeks after the first game. So when you see that, I'm going, guys, we can't do this every game. And so but some of the things we were able to do. So we did dial it back, and there's the economic reality is that you just can't blow hundreds of thousands of dollars per game on game day entertainment, but we kept almost everything in, and we're able to reduce the costs by just being more diligent and going, we can't bring players down from the ceiling every game. Can we do it one time? And if we do it next year, we can do it for a fraction of the cost because we know what we're doing.
Right.
All right. That was a big problem is nobody knew how to do this, and we were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to create something that hadn't been created. For example, the spider stage with Kiss. That was something that Paul came up with and said, hey, build this. Well, they made, I'm sure, a lot of mistakes, but when you use it, 150 times, you amortize that over a longer period of time. We were able to do that from a business standpoint, and we put on a great show in the last game of the season. Was it everything that we had in the first show? No, it wasn't, but it was better than anything that's ever been done, and that includes NFL, NBA, NHL, and the Arena Football League. A lot of people say, hey, what did you put on a great entertainment compared to all the other teams? No, we've done the best, and you can compare it to any other team that's out there in professional sports. Ours was the best.
Yeah, and I forget the name of the sort of entertainment director that you brought in to do all this stuff. But why not use the KISS team? Why not use the KISS crew and the roadies? They know how to put stuff up and tear it down.
We did, but everything's unique to the arenas, so we had to use a lot of the members with the Honda Center, but we brought in Harlan. Harlan
That's
is the
his
guy
name. Sorry.
mentioned. He works for the Pistons. We had to get approval from the Pistons to use him. He was incredible. But we used a lot of the same guys. We used the tour managers for KISS. We used Robert Long. I mean, guys that are out there on the road, almost all of those guys were working at our games. We used the actual iconic KISS sign. So when we scored a touchdown, the KISS sign would light up. But, I mean, it was suspended in the air 300 feet in the air, and it was amazing effect. And to me, that was really cool because that brought me back to the, to my roots.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the way the team performed, you didn't get to see it turn on quite as much as you'd want, right?
Yeah, in arena football, we still had it turn on a lot, but yeah, not as much as we would like, and that's going to change in 2015. I promise you that.
Now, are Gene and Paul just business partners, or did you grow up being a fan of KISS and what they did?
Well, you know what? I did grow up as a fan. I am not going to pretend to say that I'm a hardcore fan, but I remember wanting to see him in 1979. I was 10 years old. My brother was a huge fan. That's how I was introduced to KISS, was through my big brother. Right. He was.
We share the same story. 1979 and my big brother. So.
And he had posters everywhere, but I was never as big of a KISS fan as he was. But I remember being distraught when my parents thought I was too young to go see KISS in '79, and I'm still mad at my dad for that. I mean, I literally am still mad. And but I did see him in it was either '83 or '84, the Creatures of the Night tour with Vinnie Vincent, and they had the Tank stage, and I've seen him probably 10 to 12 times since. And one cool thing was last year I had the opportunity to take my wife to see KISS in Orlando. They had never seen it before. I took my youngest son, who was 7, and I took my dad, who was 72. And what was so cool is that we go out to dinner after the concert, and I remember they went up to Gene and Paul, and they said, what a great show, and everybody had a great time. My 72-year-old dad, who cannot stand hard rock music, said that was the most entertaining 2 hours of his entire life. Yeah. My 7-year-old, who could care less about music, thought the visual was amazing. He couldn't believe Paul went across there. He just thought it was the coolest thing ever. My wife, who really likes, Madonna and Britney Spears, she absolutely loved, the concert. And so you have 4 different generations that were there, female and male, and everybody across the board loved it. And it was so cool for me to share something that I enjoyed as a kid with my wife, my youngest son, and my dad, and everybody loved it. That is what makes KISS so amazing, that a 72-year-old and a 7-year-old that have no interest in KISS, they go to the concert, and they said, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And, Kiss over the last 40 years gets a lot of criticism from fans. Their set list is this and that. But you can't argue that they are successful. You just cannot argue. Regardless of who the members are, they're successful. When you sit down with Gene and Paul, do they teach you anything? Or did you learn anything? Did you go, wow, look at how they do that? Or is it just two other business partners and they're just not unique?
I definitely have learned so much from them, especially Paul. I mean, and the one thing I also did is when you go into business with somebody, you do as much research as you can on them as possible. With Kiss, there's a lot out there. And I read the Ken Sharp book. I forget, yes. Nothing to Lose.
Yes.
And it was so inspiring to see all of the challenges and how the odds were stacked against them. And I saw things that were analogous to the Arena Football League, is that here is this incredible product, but not everybody knows about it in the mainstream. And we have this opportunity. And just reading those stories and, when they're playing, in Queens and everything like that, when they play their first concert in front of 10 people and how they basically are trying all these different concepts. But the thing that's amazing is how the perseverance they have.
Yes.
And the other thing I respect about these two men so much is I've got a chance to meet their kids and see them with their families. And you always, I believe, in my opinion, you see the true character of a person when you see them around their children and how their children look at them as men. And to a T, whether it's Paul's kids and Gene's kids, there is this adoration that they have for their dads, and they are such good dads. And the one thing that I would tell that people don't know about Gene and Paul is they are amazing dads and amazing human beings because of that. Do I agree with them on everything? Absolutely not. But they really, really are. And that's one of the things, the cool things that I've been able to see as I've, because I'm one of the few people that have gotten behind the curtain. And they're just great, great dads and just normal guys. Is there a certain amount of arrogance because of them being rock stars and everything that's happened to them and because everybody is always around you just kissing your ass? Yes. But they're real guys and they focus. They have not got distracted by the money. They have not got distracted by drugs or alcohol like other people have. I mean, Ace and Peter, we all know the stories. I've never talked to one of those guys, not Ace and Peter I'm talking about, but they didn't get distracted. And they're criticized so much for what they did, but they should be celebrated for making the tough decisions and saying, listen, Kiss is a brand that should go on, yes. All right? And we should honor it. And just because two guys made bad decisions, let's keep this thing going forward. And with Paul in the 80s, which he was almost going at it by himself. That's what I've learned from these guys, the perseverance, not to quit. And no matter what the challenges you have in front of you, you can overcome them. And that's what I've learned from these guys.
You sort of suggested that they have been surrounded by yes men who will say, yes, but that's great. That's a great song. That's a great. As an owner of a football team, which is a real business, do you get caught into that sort of celebrity, or do you go, no, I got to focus? How do you deal with that? And how do they react if you actually disagree with them?
Oh, I've disagreed plenty, and we've had some good exchanges. One, I can just tell you, I got into it with Gene, and I don't know if that'll ever make it into the show.
It should,
but it should, and I just vehemently disagreed. And I've been doing this long enough. To me, they're my partners,
right.
And to me, I am 100% focused on growing the brand of LA Kiss. I'm not going to apologize about this, is that my focus is not about building the Kiss brand. It's about building the LA Kiss brand, and they are separate, distinct, and different. Yes. And is there some crossover? Absolutely, but that's always going to be my focus, is the LA Kiss. So because of that, sometimes we get into issues and we clash, but I have no problem saying my piece with Gene and Paul and Doc. And I think they respect me for that. And, I'm not going to say yes because they're celebrities or whatever, because there's a lot of things that hopefully they're learning from me also in terms of about professional sports. And they don't understand it. It is very, very different. You're in a business where you have partners, which is other owners of the other teams, your partners for 347 days. But then for 18 days, you do whatever you can to get a competitive advantage, screw them over, do whatever it takes. And it is a hard mentality to get into. The other thing is they control the outcome. So when you go to a KISS concert, it's always good, right? They never lose. There is things that happen in sport that you can't control. You can't control if the ball is going to go off the net and take a funny bounce, or a guy's going to drop a pass and it's going to get intercepted. There's an element of non-control that these guys are not used to. And you have to be able to roll with the punches when bad things happen. And I think that's hard for them, because one of the reasons they love about KISS is they control everything. And with the LA KISS, they don't. I don't. The coaches don't. You're dependent on other people for you to be successful. And I think that's very, very frustrating to all of us. But, they've had to learn that for sure.
The LA KISS has put the AFL in the media spotlight. I saw an AFL game probably 15 years ago and completely forgot it existed, and that's partly because I live in Canada and it's not on here. How does the AFL grow now and become one of the major sports? You got the four NBA, NHL, and all that. How does the AFL become number 5?
Yeah, there was an article in ESPN magazine that said, are we the 5th major with a question mark? And they were talking about the Arena Football League a few years ago. And I think it's important to not focus on being the next major. We want to be the best fusion of sports and entertainment. And I think that gives us a competitive advantage. All right. The other sports won't do what we've done because it is a distraction. They don't want to take the distraction off of the baseball team. Well, the reality of what's going on with TV is that people HD and they're with the cameras and it's almost better to watch a football game on TV than it is in person.
It absolutely is.
A couple of years I went to a Super Bowl game, had tickets in a suite in the 40-yard line. I mean, you can't get better seats. Maybe 50-yard line is the only thing that's better at a Super Bowl. And I remember it was the game where David Tyree caught that ball. It was the Giants and the Patriots. The Patriots were undefeated. He caught the ball off of his helmet. I remember watching it, squinting my eyes, going, I can't wait till I get home to see that highlight on TV. And and it just hit me, and I'm like, these seats are horrible.
Yes.
All right. The field is so big. The stadium is so big. And I started comparing it to an arena football game. The equivalent seat in an arena football arena would be at the top level of the arena. Our front row seats are right next to the action. It's like putting a folding chair out on the hash marks. Our game is so different. We need to do things when there is TV commercial breaks that are just as entertaining as the football game. And other sports will not do that. And part of it is because they derive so much. 80% of the revenue comes from TV. That's not the case with us. That's an advantage. The other thing is ticket prices. The average ticket price for all of the 4 majors that you talked about is $75 a game.
That's cheap, actually. It's probably like $100. I mean, in Montreal alone, a hockey game is $300.
I know. So people are having to make a choice between buying a new TV and taking their family to an NHL or NBA or NFL game.
It's like, do I pay the rent or do I see a hockey game? You go, yeah, rent.
I understand that, but when I grew up and I was a kid, I went to an NBA game. I came from a lower middle class family, and it was a cross section of American society. My dad could go buy a ticket for $10 in the 15th row, all right, and watch the game. And I was able to grow up and do that. Now, if you're in the lower bowl of a stadium or an arena for one of those events, it is a corporate event. I feel like I need to dress up in a suit because I'm going to see so many people that I know from a work standpoint. It's not a cross-section of American society anymore. It's an elite event, and it's a major, major problem. And that generations are growing up without seeing the sports live. We are different. All right. And we are also in an embryonic stage. We are just now having the second generation of arena football fans. People forget that the NFL had 52 teams fail, all right, in the first 25 years. All right. The NHL did not, no sports league had success in their first 50 years. It was only when the third generation of fan started supporting them. You're going to see 20 years from now going, hey, I grew up, my dad was an LA Kiss fan, and I grew up as an LA Kiss fan. Now I'm bringing my kids and they're LA Kiss fans. So long term, that's what you have to look about. And I've had the discussion with Gene and Paul is that, hey, this is not about a 1 year or 2 year type investment. This is an investment that's going to transcend, that you're going to pass down to your kids. This is something that we have to look at building for the next 20 years. You guys go into a market, whether it's Toronto or it's Los Angeles, and you might not go back for 4 or 5 years. The analogy is kind of like it's a one-night stand. Right here, this is a long-term marriage. Because of that, we have to do things differently. It's the opposite of what happens in the music business. You're going to be here, and you might be back in 4 years, you might be back in 8 years, you might be back in 10 years. But here, we're going to be here 9 times a year with home games. We have 18 games. We're going to be back every single year, and you have to look at it. You have to be tender. You have to be loving. You have to be committed, similar to a marriage.
Is the business of LA Kiss then sound? Are we, putting up the white flag, and is there danger, or we're good for the next 5 years?
We're good for the next 20 years. We have built something where we're the highest revenue team. We are doing very, very well. Financially, I can't complain. And I think you're going to see what the spotlight that the LA Kiss has put on the Arena Football League. You're going to see it grow exponentially over the next 5 or 10 years. And this is just the beginning. And we're about, ready to announce a new commissioner in the coming days. And I think from a business standpoint, things could not be any brighter for not only us, but the Arena Football League. And that's what I'm so excited about. And the spotlight that Fourth and Loud and Gene and Paul and Kiss has put on this. I mean, for Kiss to put their brand on a sports team, you would not believe. I mean, they were very, very thoughtful. It wasn't just Gene and Paul. It was, the attorneys and the accountants and Doc. It was a very, very shrewd but committed decision, because if you have a licensed product and it fails, no big deal. There'll be another one. But we are out there in such a big way that we can't fail. All right, we have to be successful, and that's what's so awesome to see how engaged they are. And their management. I mean, they've said they've never seen, other than Kiss, Paul so engaged and so involved in anything like this. And the fact that Paul, greenlit the real reality show, I think was a testament of how committed they are. Because how many times did he appear on Simmons Family Jewels?
Once, I think, for the marriage one, and I think that was under duress that he did that. So
I know it. I mean, there's a reason why, and now you see him because it's real. I mean, you see him in here, developing everything, and he's so much a part of the brand. And we had a meeting with a big company up in Portland, and Paul was involved in the meeting. It was my president, Skyler, and Paul was involved, and you can probably figure out which big company that is in Portland. But at the end of the day, Paul's there, and he's literally flying up there, participating in meetings for us, and it's so cool to see him that engaged.
And we'll end on these couple of last questions. Was it disappointing when Paul stopped going to the games? I mean, I think, and I'm getting this from Fourth and Loud, that he was so annoyed with the losing that he just said, "I ain't coming until you start winning again."
No, that's not correct. I mean, what he said. That
was my perception of his actions, not what he said.
At the time, it was a home game. We were 2-7. We were playing a 9-0 team that had just won the last 2 championships.
Okay.
And he asked me a question. He goes, "Can we win this game?" And I gave him an honest answer, and it was not good. I said,
No,
we can't. Not only that, we are going to get blown out. So at the time, he's like, I don't know if I can stomach that. And I go, you know what? You probably shouldn't come to the next game.
Okay.
All right. And I did that because I knew, and we lost by 45 points, I think. And I knew that that was going to happen. And I just, as a friend and business partner, didn't want to subject him to that. But no, they've been absolutely awesome. They've been following it and also I think they had a tour commitment too. Okay. You know, the one thing is these guys are busy guys. I mean, they came to every single game they could have, with the exception of that one with Paul.
Oh, you know, by the way, speaking of tours, you had that acoustic show set up in the casino.
Yes. San Manuel Casino, yes.
It appeared to me from watching the show that you booked that without asking them. Perhaps that's a misperception, but
it's not really that much of a misperception. What happened was I talked to them about it several months ago, and I think Gene forgot. Okay. But there was a time lapse of where we talked about it for 4 months. We got the deal done, and should there have been better communication by myself? Probably. So, and were they irritated about it? Absolutely, they were. And that's as partners, we talked about it and we resolved that so it doesn't happen. But it did happen. I mean, yes, there's some validity into that discussion.
But it does go to show how they're professional, and they didn't have a hissy fit and walk out. They did it. They complained about it, but they didn't. That's a professional way to handle things.
And what was so cool is that it was the first acoustic set since Unplugged. And I was there and, putting my fan hat on, it was awesome. And we limited there was only a set amount of seats. I think there was only 1,500 people there. It sold out in a matter of hours. And it was a really cool, intimate night that they really got to show their personality. And it was a really, really cool, special night for everybody that was there.
I can imagine. And so we'll end with this. Vince Neil comes into the league next year. Motley Crue's a big band, but, they're not, in terms of image with the makeup, they're not that. So what does Vince bring to the league?
I think Vince is a guy, and he's got partners in Las Vegas. I think they're going to do a very, very good job in Vegas. I think Vegas is a market that's very similar to Los Angeles, meaning that there's so many different options. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to do things different. And Vegas is used to that. So I hope they take the business model that we've created here in Los Angeles and they plagiarize stuff that we do and do it in Vegas. Because if there's another market that this will work in, what we've done, it's for sure Vegas. And so I think it's good. And it takes somebody to not, that's what's great about, KISS, is that they're so unique in their thinking and they're brilliant guys, but they're just out-of-the-box guys. Vince, I'm not saying I'm going to put him in the same category as Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley because I just won't. They're just not in their same category for a variety of different reasons in terms of the professionalism, not letting the cliches of rocks, of rock music and stardom, trip them up. I mean, we all know about some of Vince's battles in the past. But I do think he is a guy that is an outlaw. The name of the team is the Las Vegas Outlaws. And I think he's going to bring that to the table, and I think you're going to see some unique things done. And that's what should be celebrated with the Arena Football League is let's focus on being different. All right? We're not the NFL. We're not the NBA. We should be proud of that. They have a lot of flaws right now.
Oh, yes.
They've become so big that I use the Titanic might be a little dramatic, but there's an iceberg ahead, and they cannot turn fast enough. We are nimble enough and we are small enough to be able to say, hey, we're going to go right around the iceberg. We're going to move. All right. And we can do that. And I think that's an advantage for us. And when you see where the Arena Football League, you can have the vision to think not about tomorrow. Don't think about 2015. What about 2035? Where are we going to be amongst the sports leagues? I think we can be not only up there, but we can surpass some of those leagues. Will you ever surpass the NFL? Probably not. But I always say this, is that the NFL is the Neiman Marcus of football. We're the Walmart. And you know what? There's a lot of billionaires that are running around with the last name of Walton because of Walmart.
Absolutely.
That's what we need to be, is we need to be the Walmart of football. And I think there's a huge market for that.
Yeah, I really think it's an interesting product, the AFL, and I would love to see Canadian expansion, and I would certainly love to see the AFL on a Canadian broadcaster, TSN or Sportsnet, because hey, it's fun. It's people bashing themselves in a small arena. It's back to the days of gladiators, and we need more gladiators. So,
I have one question for you. What do you think of the show Fourth and Loud? Your honest opinion, even if it's a criticism, because I try to go on social media and I want to hear the positives and the negatives. We've gotten great reviews. Variety has given us a great review. We've had news days. We have had not one negative review on the show, but I know there's people out there, and I've heard some people say it's too much Kiss, it's not enough Kiss, it's too much football, it's not enough football. But I'd love to hear your honest opinion as a fan,
and I'll give you the absolute honest opinion. I thought the first couple of shows were slow in developing because, you have to have sort of a certain empathy for the characters. I thought showing the Kenny Spencer cheating stuff was unnecessary, but I do enjoy watching you and I forget how to say his name, Schuler?
Skyler.
Skyler. Okay, it's a tough one for me. I do wish that Gene was a bit more enthusiastic. He seems somewhat morose, but the show is growing on me. It is getting better. You start feeling a bit for these players. You're watching them go from 2-4 to 2-5 to 2-9, and you go, wow, that's got to be tough. I mean, they're playing for $850. I would just go home. So that the fact that they're sticking with it. And you got Donovan and the quarterback that came in at the end who hurt his ribs, and I forget his name all of a sudden. The guy you brought in who's 43 years old.
Aaron Garcia. Which, by the way, is the new head coach of the Las Vegas Outlaws.
There you go. That's a good gig for him. It is becoming endearing, and you are starting to get feeling empathetic for the characters, and you are starting to root for the team. But I do want to see more of Paul. I do want to see more of Gene. And I do want to see more of how the business works and how you get a team up and running and how it's more than just about Kiss. Because at some point, like one of my questions is, it's got to be about the football. And so I do want to see how it becomes more about the football. I'm a little, baffled that we don't see Doc McGee ever in it. I don't know why that is. But, it's interesting. And we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, and Doc McGee he's in Nashville most of the time, and they had the tour going on, so he was on tour for a lot of the time, and then Gene and Paul live here. So McGee has offices in L.A. A lot of it is just a byproduct of locations.
Okay.
But I can just tell you the last 4 episodes are, and I haven't seen them, but I've been told by the producers who have been right on. They said it is unbelievable. And, the finale was it took me 2 days to recover from shooting the finale. And it was so difficult. It was the most difficult day of my business career. And I cannot believe that people are going to be able to sit as a fly on the wall in the room when we went through that. And it was a very, very difficult day. And I can tell you the finale is going to be crazy. It's also, that'll be our most watched episode. The viewership keeps trending up. That's going to be 2 days after the Walking Dead premiere, and it is going to be incredible. In the last 4 episodes will be, they said each episode from here on out, after episode 3 gets better. And the first couple episodes I thought were a little slower also.
They were terribly slow.
But it's about character development at that point, and they had to kind of go through that. But again, I'm not the producer. I don't edit it and everything like that. All I know is from episode 3 on, it's been pretty amazing, and it's going to be even more compelling, and you're going to be shocked. So the last 4 episodes.
And if you go back onto my Facebook and stuff, and you see me talk about the first 2 episodes, you're not going to be happy with what you read because I just thought they were dreadful. But the last few episodes, that momentum is building. Now that I know who Donovan is, now that I know J.J. Ratnick, now that I know, all of a sudden you go, okay, I'm starting to get into it. I do like the business side more. I do like all that stuff more, but it has grown and it has gotten a lot better. It's the narrative is better. The empathy for the characters are better. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Hopefully there'll be a season 2. I wouldn't have said that. Honestly, I wouldn't have said that 5 weeks ago. I would have said, Jesus Christ, just shit can this thing right now. Now I'm not there. Now I'm like, all right, it's found its rhythm. Keep it going.
No, and I know it. If we just have to win. I cannot relive a second season of losing. So,
but that's the bottom line. Even for the show, had the LA Kiss Fourth and Loud show been about a team of expansion ragtags that went on to win the championship, it would have sold itself. And to try to sell a 3 and 9, 3 and 15,
3 and 15. But you know what?
I don't know.
The producers actually said they were worried that we were going to be too good, which they thought would have been boring. All right, which I thought was ironic, is that and these guys are the TV guys, and they're saying, seeing the absolute train wreck the second half of the season is some of the most compelling stuff we've ever shot, and we've never shot anything with the reality, with it being so real and so raw and so honest. And they said, we think from a TV perspective that it was actually better, that you guys went 3 and 15 versus 15 and 3, because nobody wants to see everybody high five and everything's good and they're shaking hands. That's not what sells from a TV standpoint. There has to be an element of drama and the losing and the train wreck aspect of what happens, because it is nothing more than a train wreck the last half of the season.
And it's actually smart that you pointed that out, because I am watching them going, Jesus Christ, this is horrible. How are they going to survive in terms of the season? And it has become compelling watching these guys not just quit, not just, keeping wanting to go on. So you're right. Maybe a 15 and 3 season would have been boring, because I find it interesting now.
And you find true character in times of adversity. And we see some of that, and some people rise to it and some people fold. And those people, get jettisoned, at the end, in the finale. And there's going to be some bloodshed in the finale.
Good. And with Paul and Gene, I do see Paul rising to the occasion and being very, very concerned about it working. Gene sort of comes off as grumpy, unfortunately. But Paul, you really go, now I see why he lasted through the 80s with Kiss. Now I see why, because he's got that spirit and he's got that drive and he wants to be a winner at everything he does. And you see that in the show.
Yeah, in the dynamic of Gene and Paul has never been really documented on TV. And hopefully that comes through, because that's one of the cool things that I've seen is that, I knew who they were, but, getting to spend time with them and seeing the dynamic of, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons and how they interact, I hope that comes through in the show, because they're definitely a unique pair. And, I'm divorced. I'm divorced and I'm on my second marriage. These guys have been together for 40-something years. I mean, that is amazing. I don't know of many bands that can say that the two main guys stayed together for that long period of time. Most of them can't even survive 40 years together. And just from a longevity standpoint, they've obviously taken great care of themselves. And no offense to Ace, but, listen to an Paul Stanley interview and listen to an Ace Frehley. There's consequences for those actions of, all of the years when you abuse your body, whether it's through drugs or alcohol or not taking care of yourself. And there's just a complete difference between, those guys. And I think that's a positive. And, people might bash me for saying that, but I really don't care. And then, those guys should be celebrated for taking care of themselves over the years, period.
Well, they really should be. And one of the reasons why I don't drink and don't smoke is because the message Gene Simmons put out there when I was 10 and 11 and 12. And I went, it's good enough for the Demon and Kiss. Not, when I was 1979, I go, it's good enough for me. And I stuck with it. So,
but isn't that cool? I mean, who else has done? I mean, who else in? No one. There's nobody else like that. They're so unique. I mean, and no one talks about that. And he gets ripped for saying the things that he says off the cuff. And some of that should be criticized. But at the end of the day, who else has done that? What high-profile person has come out and said that I'm this way? Maybe Tim Tebow? All right. But, I mean, Tim Tebow has been doing it for a few years. Gene has done it for 40 years. That is so cool. And he should be applauded. And yet,
absolutely,
when he talks, he gets ripped by the haters or whatever. And to me, I think it's the coolest thing about him.
Yeah, no. When it comes to the drinking and alcohol and all that, or the drugs, I really think he should be applauded. People don't agree with me. They say, "Oh, Mitch, go have a drink," but I'm with Gene on this one. So
I love it. I drink. I'll have an occasional drink. I'll go out with date night with my wife, and we'll have 2 drinks, and that's fine. And so anything in moderation is fine. It's just him not doing it and having the discipline to never succumb to those cliches is nothing short of amazing. And that to me is just something that is so cool about them and Paul. I mean, they're good guys, and I wish people could see the things behind the curtain that I've seen with those guys, because they would be absolutely amazed and go, I can't believe what great dads they are. I can't believe if everyone's children talked about their parents like Sophie, Nick, and all of Paul's kids talk about them, the world would be a better place. I promise you that.
Yeah, I agree. And on that, we'll stop there. But and of course, since you do mention interviewing Ace, I interviewed him recently. I encourage people to go listen to that interview. But absolute pleasure. We should do this again someday. Absolute pleasure, Brett.
Thank you very much. I'd love, even if we do an interview or when the, you watch the end of the season, you watch the finale, please, I would love to know your feedback and what you thought about the finish of the, of the Fourth and Loud season. But I appreciate it. You taking the time to interview me, and thank you very much.
Absolutely. Let me just